need to be actively anti-racist, not complicit with it. And I think that ultimately speaking, being silent, right, would make the conditions worse. It's not anti-racist, and we should be anti-racist the same way we should be anti-misogynistic, right? We don't just sit there and let people be misogynistic. Appreciate the handout. Thank you so much. And say if we just stop talking about misogyny, well, misogyny is going to go away. I don't think we believe that with misogyny. I don't think that we believe that with ableism. Like, oh, people are going to stop being ableist if we just stop talking about it. No. Thank you for that mustache. Thank you so much. That's not how it works. We need to acknowledge the issues of our society to actively deal with them. That's like saying if you don't acknowledge your problems, that you're going to somehow get better.
But how do you think that we're going to get better by just saying or just keeping us divided, though? You know what I mean?
So again, what divides this country is conspiracy, right? Appreciate the magic rhythm. Thank you so much. It is a lie that Donald Trump unifies this country. There are multiple people that were a part of his administration appointed by him that indicated that he is not trying to unify this country, that he only cares about himself. Multiple people from his administration.
Well,
I can name them off if you like.
That is definitely true. I strongly feel like he is for himself. Yes.
Thank you for the fireworks. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Bagley. Yeah, that's why he undermined the border bill. That's why he's getting Netanyahu to not accept a ceasefire, right? Urging Netanyahu to do that, right? That's why he cares, again, more about himself, more about him being elected than he cares about the effect it has on this country.
So my question about that is about racism. Do you feel like white people are becoming the new minority?
No.
You don't feel that?
No.
Whenever white people are now...
And who cares? Even if it is the case that, even in the long run, if white people become a minority in this country, what's the issue?
Well, why does anyone have to be?
Why does anyone? It's not saying it has to be. That's just like what people chose to do. Where's the DJ glasses? Thank you so much.
Why can't we all just be equal and just live our lives? Why does there have to be any kind of racism with it?
Yeah, we want to get rid of racism. Saying that like white people are going to be a minority doesn't mean that there's racism towards white people. That just means that less than 50% of the country is white.
But whenever people say that, how many times have you heard that white people can't be racist?
So I've heard a lot of white people say that.
Yes, I've heard a lot of every ethnicity say, "Oh, white people can't be racist," or not white people.
People who are black. So it depends on the definition that you're referencing. And I've heard from white people saying that white people can't be racist, by the way. I just want to let you know. But in terms of you're saying people saying black people can't be racist, it depends on the definition you use. If the definition you use is racial prejudice, well, yes, black people can engage in racial prejudice. But by that definition, yes, black people can be racist. But what they mean is prejudice in power. If there's no power structure that's actively oppressing people who are white in this country, how can a black person be racist if it requires, again, prejudice and power? Because there's no power dynamic involved. It would just be racial prejudice. But if you define racism as racial prejudice, well then yes, it would be racist based on your definition. Appreciate the convey. Thank you so much. And I do agree that a lot of people have a colloquial definition of racism that is just racial prejudice, but a lot of people also have a colloquial definition that racism is prejudice plus power. And that's both of these different definitions of racism are completely consistent, make sense, and we're just talking past each other when we say this sometimes.
Yes. Okay, so I feel like, first off, I feel like we are the least racist we've ever been in the history of the United States. Do you not agree?
So I don't know how we could quantify that. Now, I do think that we've made active progression from the past. Now, do I think that we're actively at the least racist ever? I don't know. Right? I think that probably you probably have better arguments to say that we were doing better before Trump. Right? Now, again, the point that I would make is that it is the case that we probably shouldn't take the positions as well of like how much racism there is in this country, right, from people who aren't experiencing that racism as well. Right? We should probably ask people who are experiencing racism, right, like what it would be for them, right, or try to find some like empirical like basis for the position. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise, it doesn't really make sense for like two white people to go on a live and be like, "Oh, we think that racism is at this level in society." Well, I've never experienced racism, right? I've never actively in real life experienced someone being racist to me because of the color of my skin. It's never happened to me.
That's the problem, because I feel like we are getting that way. We are getting the way to the point to where people are getting racist towards white people, and now we're becoming a minority whenever we should all just be equal.
Wait. Being a minority does not mean that people are going to be racist to us. I think the only reason you have that assumption is because when other groups have been minorities, white people have done that to them. Donald,
Yes.
thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. So, again, being a minority wouldn't be an issue, right? If you advocate for like equality and equity, right? It's just the proportion of people that have this quality. Like, for example, right? Not a minority of individuals in this country have hazel eyes, right? You can clearly see my eyes are hazel. Okay, that's not a scary thing, is it, for me to have hazel eyes? Because there's actively nothing that discriminates against me on the basis of me having hazel eyes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I just don't understand, because I feel personally that there is racism, but I don't feel like it's towards African Americans. I feel
that's a ridiculous statement to make.
I feel like it's turning towards whites.
Okay, to say that white people are experiencing more racism than people who are black in America, I think is utterly ridiculous.
And
right, like, when have you experienced racism in real life?
Really? Are there white colleges that only white people can go to?
What college is it that you can only go to if you're black? Think of the entire.
It's down south. What is it called? Okay, I honestly can't tell you what it is for sure, just to be honest with you. But there is funding, not the college, but it's funding.
Because anyone can go to an HBCU, right?
Yes. It is funding itself, though. It's not the college, but it's funding where
more funding. So let's think about it this way. Let's say we're playing a Monopoly game, and there's like 10 people in this Monopoly game, and everyone is given the same amount of money in the beginning, except for 2 people. 2 people are given less money. Okay.
Yep.
Right. In that game, right, we play it for a little bit. We play it for like 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, right, you give the same amount of money that was in between the 2 people and the other 8 people, right, to close that gap. Right? Is it unfair because you only gave it to the 2 people? Well, no, because it was originally made unfair, right? And you're just correcting the unfairness. So correcting the unfairness isn't unfair to do.
It's not, but I don't understand why you're correcting the unfairness. What was the unfairness?
Racism? The history of racism, slavery.
Yes, what about it?
Jim Crow laws, redlining. But continued racism today, medical racism.
That's where I was getting at, slavery. Okay. There were blacks that owned blacks.
Black people.
Black people. Sorry. There were many races that owned many other races. There wasn't just...
Yeah, but explicitly in the United States, there was racism on the basis baked into the slavery. Okay, so slavery was justified by using racism by the people who were slave owners. They tried to justify doing that, which is disgusting, morally abhorrent, right?
Yes,
and that's what we're acknowledging. Totally we're acknowledging that slavery in America has a history of racism, and racism is embedded in that.
I completely agree with you. Yes, I do. But the fact that we are not that way anymore, and nobody living right now has ever lived through that. So why are we still trying to go on about that? Why can't we just get along and not think about that? Because that's all in the past. There's not one single person that has lived through that right now. That has been done for, 70, 80, 90 years? 100 years?
Say that one more time?
There is not a single person right now alive that has been through that anymore.
Through racism? Are you saying through racism?
Slavery.
So, you understand that there actually has been slavery extended past this point. There have been certain communities where it still has happened. There's been Jim Crow, and there's also slavery in prisons. So the war on drugs has perpetuated a disproportionate amount of people who are black in prisons, right? Which has then led to the ability for these types of prisons to enslave people who are black at disproportionate rates. Does that make sense?
Can't really. It does, but you can't really use prison as an example because prisoners are of all races are people that do shit wrong, like they're criminals. So
wait. So what do we criminalize though? And what we were criminalizing was, by the way, you can't say any of the drugs names. I'm just letting you. We were criminalizing M drug. Okay, criminalizing other forms of drugs like C drug, right? Which explicitly, right, was being applied more to people who are black, not to people who are white, because white people and black people, they engage in leafy greens at the same rate, right? But people who are black are arrested at significantly higher rates, 4 times higher rates than people who are white. So why is it the case that they are arrested at a 4 times higher rate if it is the case that it's done at the same degree in the communities?
Because of the communities they live in, where they're at.
Because the communities they live in are over-policed. So why are those particular communities the ones that are over-policed, when again, they commit the crime at the same rate?
Because that's where most criminal activity has been happening.
Wait, but again, they commit the crime at the same rate. So why is it the case that there's a disproportionate effect when it is the case that they commit the crime at the same rate?
See, I don't know. See, there I will say I don't know that I believe that it's at the same rate.
It is.
I
can send you a study on that. There's a study that I can show you that again, white people and black people use leafy greens at the same rate.
That probably is true because that is a very common thing. But I will say, so I can't remember exactly, but I think black people represent, 13% of the United States? Is that true?
Yeah, around
13?
I think it might be up to 14% now. I'd have to check.
But they commit over 50% of.
Oh gosh. So no, this is a heavily miscited statistic. So actually, if you look at this, it is the case that you're only looking at people who are arrested. 61% of convictions are black people. 61% of convictions. Not convictions. 61 of exonerations. 61% of exonerations are black people. Sorry. So a lot of these people who are arrested, right? They didn't actually commit the crime. So again, people who are black are disproportionately arrested, right? Incorrectly. That's what this means. So that's actually that statistic doesn't actually show, right, that there is even a disproportionate effect of people who are black doing this. It just shows that again they are arrested at higher rates, not convicted, right?
Yeah, I mean that could be, and I'm not 100% about that. So I don't want to say anything about anything I'm not sure about. So
it also shows that there's a big problem with the arresting process. Right, so this also identifies a problem within the police that we need to reform and we need to work on. Again, what's really important to do with police is reallocate police funds towards things that are better suited at like dealing with crime. Okay, and reform the police. So reallocate and reform. That is the basis for how I feel like we should attack police in the United States, or attack like the police problem. Because in the United States, there's a significantly greater proportion of people who are violently attacked by police officers, right, than people in other countries, right? If you're in another country, the rate in which you will experience violence associated with police is at a significantly lower rate than what it is in the United States. So disproportionately affected in the United States. So it is a police problem, right, in the United States comparative to other places around the world.
I could see. I definitely agree because I would like to say I'm pro-police. I really would like to, but
we're pro the idea of police. Okay, yes. The idea of police is not a bad thing. It's how police have been able to utilize their power in the United States that effectively has worse conditions for people here in the United States, and that's why people have a bad taste in their mouth with police, but not firefighters. That mustache. Yes. Thank you so much. When I look at a police officer, when other people in this country look at a police officer, we should look at it the same way that we look at firefighters. Thank you, the hearts. Thank you so much. When I see a firefighter, I see a hero. I see someone who's here to help me, right? I don't see someone who's here to like that could possibly hurt me, right?
And
that's not what I'm thinking about first, and that's what everyone in this country should have to go through. They shouldn't have to go through where they are scared of the police in that aspect. Again, given that they're doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, but that I will agree with, because anytime you do see a police officer, whether you're driving, whether you're anything, no matter what race you are constantly thinking, how am I going to get screwed right now? How am I getting pulled over? How am I getting whatever? So,
but I think what Parker's point is that certain people within our population experience that anxiety and that fear greater than others. So, like, I'm not a fan of the police overall. Like, they give me anxiety because I'm just an anxiety-ridden person by my nature. But I have never feared that the police would harm me. Right? Like, when I've only been pulled over once in my life. Like actually once in my life. Never during that time did I fear that the officer was going to, pull a gun on me because they thought I, was dangerous or something, right? They just didn't. I just knew that they wouldn't have that fear, right? I've met with police many times when I moved to a new state, and they've all been wonderful to me. They've been kind. They've been great. They've fixed my issues, right? They've been great, and I just have this feeling, and I think the data bears it out, that is not the same for those of us in the United States that have a non-white melanin color to us, right? That's the problem.
Like presentation.
Yeah,
right? So.
and Nika, thank you for the $5, Nika. Thank you so much.
And Megan, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Mary Jo, thank you so much for the $25 on Venmo. Thank you so much, Mary Jo. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And Kelly with the $50 on Venmo. Thank you so much for your patience and temperament. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Kelly. Let's get some W's for Mary Jo, W's for Kelly in the comments section right now. Thank you so much.
So,
and also, Matt, you wanted to add like historical context, didn't you? Oh, did Matt, you there? Oh, I think Matt's experiencing some MAGA mobile.
So I understand where he's coming from, though, but I also feel like there is a lot of people who are just, there's so much media and so much news out there, and it is just frightening them as if they need to be afraid.
You're good, Matt. You're good. Don't worry. Jennifer, thank you so much for the $50 on Venmo.
No.
Can we get some W's for Jennifer in the comment section right now? Thank you so much, Jennifer. Again, W's for Jennifer, W's for Kelly, and W's for Mary Jo. Thank you so much.
My app literally just quit. Like, it just went away. Like, it just quit. I was like, I thought I got like bananaed for like all eternity because it just like went away. Like, that was the weirdest thing. That's never happened before.
But yeah, Matt, you wanted to explain some historical context?
Oh, right? I just wanted to mention, you were talking about HBCUs, right? And I think, I mean, Parker kind of hinted at this already, and I think but it's a good lesson that that most of these colleges were set up either during or during or antebellum, so anywhere from 1820 to like 1865, right? They were set up for the explicit reason because places in the South would not educate black individuals, and even after, because of Jim Crow laws, that they would not allow colleges that had white populations to be able to admit a black student. So that's why they were set up. It's because even though we had the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and all these wonderful kind of progresses, the Southern states found strategies to make sure that black students still, like the poll tax, like all this other stuff, that black individuals could not get the full rights and privileges that they were granted under the Constitution. And that didn't change until 1965 with the passage of the Civil Rights Act.
Yes.
So within the lifetime of my parents, it was still, in a lot of southern states, very, very difficult for black students to get into fancy white colleges.
Yes.
That's why they're there. And as Parker already mentioned, the majority of HBCUs today have a either have more or are at populations that are mixed. So, for example, I know that there's a local HBCU to me that has a majority white population. Okay, so it's not as if these things are still there and it's only African Americans. It's that they are a legacy of slavery, of Jim Crow that reminds us that it was only 60 some years ago that changed. And I don't see why that should have to go away. And so we talk about it because we want to, one, fix the issue, and two, because we want to keep alive the memory of why this stuff actually happened in the first place. Because when you forget, these things are liable to happen again.
Yes, that's so fucking real.
Yes.
Shayla, thank you for the $50 on Cash App as well. What is going on today? We get some W's for Shayla in the comment section right now. Thank you so much for the $50 on Cash App. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's get some W mats in the comment section as well.
So I do understand that we should not forget what has happened and the tragedy that has happened before. But don't you think that we should also just get along and stop patronizing people that have not had anything to do with any of this either?
Wait, no one's saying that you're like the reason why slavery happened.
But I will say, guess though, I am benefiting from the products of that slavery. That's the point, right? It's the fact that I live in a society where even though I didn't do anything, right? I personally didn't do anything, right? But I am still benefiting from the fact that for almost 200 years, the United States had racial discrimination embedded in its very foundation of its laws, right? And I don't subscribe to like any type of like weird like historical nonsense. It is a fact that racism and slavery were embedded in the foundation from the founding of the country up until 1965, and that legacy still permeates society. That's the problem. Not that you're guilty of anything, or that Parker's guilty, or I'm guilty. It's that we live in a society where we are benefited for doing absolutely nothing because the overall structure gives us those privileges where it would not for anybody who is of Black or Hispanic or a Native American or anything like that. That's the point. Not that you are guilty of anything. It's that we are given undue privilege when we didn't do anything to actually do it. Does that make sense?
It does. So do you think that white privilege exists?
Yes.
Yes, he is very much. I have white privilege.
To you.
I have white privilege. I just described to you.
And we're not saying you're class privileged because you're white privileged. What we're saying is that, again, like white privilege. Like, okay, here I'll give you an example. You can have white privilege but not have class privilege. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
How so?
Okay, so someone, for example, like grew up in a family in poverty. Right, but they're white. So they still experience white privilege. They're not negatively impacted on the basis of the fact that they're white. They have that privilege, but it is also the case that they were born into a family where they're not privileged in terms of their class.
So do you think that other races, such as Black people, such as Asians, any other races, they couldn't have any kind of privilege?
They can have class privilege. Like, for example, right? LeBron James Jr., Bronny, right? He has class privilege, but he definitely does not have white privilege.
Okay.
Or another example, and by the way, Blue, thank you for the $50, Blue. Thank you so much. I appreciate the cash app. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. We can see now that because of the overturning of affirmative action in higher education, the rate of Black and Hispanic students in colleges has gone down, whereas white enrollment has stayed steady, but Asian enrollment has gone through the roof. Now, why is that? It's because Asians are... Well, sure, but no, it's about class. It's about class. It's the fact that they have resources to be able to give their kids great preparatory skills so that they can go to these different colleges like Yale and like Harvard. That's That's the point. Not that it's about race. It's that it's really about class.
I also think it's not good to like reinforce like the model minority myth, like the idea that like like people who are Asian are smart because they're Asian or something like that. Like I think it's bad to like reinforce those types of stereotypes, right? Even if you consider them positive, right? It's like a really weird like thing to attribute to like someone's like race.
Yeah, and also because it
Right, or
leaves
like-
out
or
other
like their
people of a
culture.
race who, because you're saying about like if one race is smart, then the other race is by definition maybe not as smart.
I understand.
Which is
that.
the problem.
I do personally think that other races, such as like Asians, I do think that they are very smart and they have a very good culture, such as Asia, China. I think they are very smart people.
China's within Asia.
Yes.
So again, wouldn't you say that about other communities?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
I mean,
so like, so
there-
why are we specifically just saying it here?
Just because it's a very known stereotype. That's why I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Let's not reinforce that stereotype.
Yes. No, I do agree with that. I do. I find it really hard to believe that why we are still trying to say that there is so much racism. Because
There is.
We already
a lot of
talked
racism,
about this.
so-
We already talked about this, right? There are different forms of racism. There's covert racism. There's overt racism. There's racism that is only exclusionary to black individuals. You can look into psychological literature because I wrote my thesis on this. You can look into psychological literature and see that there are different types of racism and prejudices, and they permeate all of society. One of the reasons why we know, for example, overt racism, okay, overt, that is saying, for example, the most terrible stuff, right, about black individuals, that has decreased over time, but covert racism has gone up over time, meaning it's those subtle stereotypes and it's those subtle hints at a prejudice that have gone up. Like you just said a little bit ago, right? You are giving covert types of things. You're not outright saying it, but you are giving covert, subtle hints about a permeation of an idea of that legacy of racism. That's the problem.
but
And
it's
also,
a
yo,
positive.
Scout, thank you so much for the $20 on Cash
Yes,
App.
also, thank you, Scout.
And MEL, thank you for the
Yes,
$5.
I thank you, Scott, for the
W
$20.
Scout.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
But how could it be racist if I'm saying positive things?
I don't think of the $5. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, like I think it's bad to again uphold these particular types of models, right? For particular like races, like for example, it like holds people to a standard that if they do not meet this, well then they are bad, right?
Okay.
Okay, so for example, right, like there is like racism targeted towards people who are black on the basis of assuming that they're going to have a large male member. Right now, if they do not meet that particular criteria, does that reinforce negative stereotypes onto them because of their race? Absolutely. Now that's racism. Again, you might
I can
associate
agree
with
with
some positive characteristic, but again, it reinforces negative stereotypes as well towards people who are black.
And thank you, Eileen, for the $25. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. There's a classic example of this. I'm not going to say it, but there's a word that was used throughout the 1800s to refer to African American men who were considered to be very below IQ, but very, very, very strong. In fact, they would pit them against each other and place bets on who could unalive the other one fastest. And that's a form of racism. You're saying something positive. You're saying they are super strong. They're stronger than any white person, but that's still a form of racism. Because you're defining them by a criteria that is not central to any type of the overall structure of the cultural thing that we call race. Like there's nothing inherent about those of African descent that makes them overall stronger. It's just not there, right? Because I know white individuals
$10, thank you.
who are very, very, very strong. I know black individuals. I know Asians. I know Hispanics. There's nothing about black individuals that makes them inherently stronger. And that positive stereotype is still a form of racism because you're giving onto them something that is taking away from the individual and it's applying it to the group.
Okay, I get what you're saying there. So if I said something positive about a black race, that would be wrong? Is that what you're saying?
If
No.
you reinforce the stereotype associated with them because of their race.
Would you ever say? Would you ever say?
Hold on,
No, Josh. Would you ever say all black people have this trait? All black people have this trait. Would you ever say those words?
It depends what it was about.
No.
It wasn't a positive thing.
Is there any trait